Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our last show for the year.
Yeah.
So for that, I have brought out the top shelf. I have brought out Johnny Walker Blue Label. So those of you, I know it's a blended whiskey, but get over it. You'll have to live with it. So I brought out the blue because if you're going to celebrate the end of the year, right? We're going to celebrate the joy of Christmas. Let's bring out the best spirits that we can, right?
Yeah.
So Johnny Blue is the whiskey of the year. Now I'm gonna really go out on a limb there. So before we get started, Marissa, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again too.
So
happy to be back.
Yeah. So that's great. That's great. So I think. What I'd like to do is just a couple of quick notes because again, sometimes when we get into the conversation, the heat of the conversation, something will slip by, and then I don't catch it. And fortunately, Presbytera is right there to let me know that I have erred in my ways. So there was a comment that was made last week that I need to clarify. And you might have heard said the last host to say, no Mary, no Jesus. And certainly this is not an Orthodox belief in any way. Jesus as a hypostasi or a person of the Holy Trinity has existed for all time, before time. So we use the word, and we talked about this last week about we have to use some word. We talk about the word begotten, but that doesn't mean he was born of God. So it's a placeholder. We put a word there, as Saint Basil has said. The poverty of the poverty of human language forces us into that. So Christ has always existed. God's plan, God's will be done, as we say in the Lord's Prayer, right? Let thy will be done. So God's will always be done, and Christ as the Son of God would have come for our salvation. So we don't ever, the Orthodox Church will never make it dependent upon a single person. It's not like a formula that if it wasn't the Virgin Mary, it's not going to happen. God's will be done. But again, the point came through, and in retrospect, I just wanted to make sure that I correct that so that we understand that as much as the plan did come to fruition because of the Virgin Mary's free will, even without that, if Mary had said no, then God's will would still have been done. Christ would, as the Son of God, would have come then for our salvation. So there's nothing earthly that can stop his will. So the other thing is there was a really good question brought up about the environmental policy. And I want to state that for us as Orthodox, the environment, and again, you saw that I was talking about this book a couple of weeks ago from our patriarchate, the Green Patriarchate. For us, the environment is not a political issue. It is a spiritual issue. So there's not the taking of sides or anything like that. And there's a wonderful line, if I could just take a little bit of time just to read that from his book on Earth as in Heaven. And it says here, or he says here, in this way humanity is sanctified through God's creation. However, the enjoyment of earthly and heavenly things was not granted to people without any presuppositions. Such enjoyment had to be the result of their own voluntary and active will. And in this respect, the protoplasti, or the Adam and Eve, right, the first created, right, were given the command to exercise now, work and keep their garden where they were placed, and given the command to increase and exercise dominion over the earth in the same sense, to work and keep the earth as an extended earthly paradise. So God has created this for our enjoyment, but as he says, it doesn't come without an obligation and a responsibility, which is that we maintain it, not because it's the right thing or the moral thing to do or the political things to do. We do it because God has commanded us. It is a spiritual a spiritual obligation for us to maintain that paradise that he has given to us.
Thank you for clarifying that. If I recall correctly from watching last week's live stream, that was a question from Trench.
Yes.
But we have a few other questions from last week before I get to the questions in the chat that I'm going to ask Father Angelo to give.
I brought the Bible this time because you guys are killing me out there because I can't memorize Bible verses, so I've brought the Bible.
It's okay, you're doing your best, but we have 2 questions before I get to the questions in the chat, so everyone please be patient with me. But the first question I'll ask is from Mary Orpheus. Hello, I am currently a catechumen and struggling to have a Western mindset and guilt-tripping myself.
Okay.
Do you have any suggestions to help?
So, and I'm assuming a catechist into the Orthodox faith.
I'm assuming so as well.
Assuming
Yeah.
so. And I am 100% on board. The Orthodox mind is an Eastern mind to a great extent, and certainly the Western mind is a little bit different. And certainly the standing joke is that with Catholicism comes guilt, right? It's kind of a package deal there. I know there's a little bit of a joke in there. So I would say the first thing in terms of releasing yourself from that Western mind, and even you, I think, Marissa, have experienced this, is to let go of the idea that there is in Christianity an answer to everything.
Yeah.
Right? Some things are just going to be, that is the mind of God, and I can't really explain that.
I feel like if like the channel for the church ever has merch, you should have a shirt that says "It depends" with your face, because I think that's your new catchphrase.
It is, right?
Yeah.
All the questions will be, it depends. And again, Holy Communion is one of the perfect examples. How does that happen? Transubstantiation, consubstantiation? No. The Orthodox answer is, I don't know. That's my other catchphrase. I don't know, mind of God. So I would say that's the starting point. And the other thing to be released from a Western mind is to get away from the dependence upon a totally scientific method. Christianity and Orthodoxy is not something to be observed under a microscope. It has to be experienced. If it can't be taken into your heart, then you are missing the experiential. Thank you. The experiential piece of Christianity, which is so important. And so this idea of I want to understand it is the wrong starting place. I want to experience it. It must flow into me. And certainly when you've been on the chant stand, and you've sung the hymns, or there's moments in a liturgy, you feel moved. It is not is not totally a cerebral experience, right? There is something that is in the heart, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I would say those are the 2 good starting points for.
I liked your catchphrase from last week quite a bit as well. The orange is snowing.
The orange is snowing. Yes, I know there was a.
I'm going to print up T-shirts that say that.
The orange is snowing.
Oh man.
What did we miss? Did we miss any other questions?
Just one more.
Okay.
And it should hopefully be a little bit easier. It's from Eric Verbessen, and his question is it a sin to have intercourse with a person you truly love?
Okay, if you are married, no. Okay, that's a pretty simple answer there. No. Okay, but I'm making again an assumption that the question is coming from premarital sex.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Orthodox answer to that will be generally no. Okay. And the reason I say that generally no, and I'm pausing, is because the reality, and any priest that says this is not true, the reality is that most of the marriages that we are doing now in the Orthodox Church, they have already been living together for a number of years. I know in my last parish, I had couples that were living together for anywhere from 7 to 10 years and then now deciding to get married. Okay, so there is a reality that we have to face. So for us to say you can't have sex before marriage, the couple is going to look at us like we're idiots, because they're like, okay, well, then what do you want us to do? We're living together, all right? So yes, now what we have to do is we have to look at what is the reasoning there. And so in this, I'm going to defer a little bit to Judaism, all right? The idea is, what is the focus of that intercourse? If the focus of that intercourse is I'm clubbing and man, as many women as I can have is what I'm looking for, certainly the Orthodox Church is going to reject that, because what are you doing? You are disrespecting and disgracing the image and likeness of God in that person, whether a woman does it to a man or a man does it to a woman, right? Okay. So we absolutely take offense to that. However, if this is somebody that you are in a committed relationship with, okay, and you know that this is now the person and you want to be married, and for whatever reasons you are not getting married, okay, then I think what the church can say is, this is not the best solution. This is not what we want, but we understand now, and that's the question that I always ask is, what is your intention with this? Now, what a lot of priests will do, and I've got to believe, and I got to say that I share in that, is what we will say is that in the time coming up to the marriage, so that they can focus on understanding the importance and the sobriety of marriage, is to abstain. That's what we will ask. We'll say, okay, maybe a week or 2 weeks or something like that. We're asking that you abstain, okay, so that you can contemplate the seriousness of what it is that you're about to embark on.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
And
Cool.
and I've got to say, every single young couple that I have married, every single young couple that I have married, and they have been living together for anywhere from 3 to 7 years, I call them up a week after and I say, so is it different? And you know what their answer is?
Yeah.
Yes. It is not. So it's not just a piece of paper. They may think it is, but they say, you know what? I really do feel different. The service was part of that, the solemnity, being in the church, hearing again, that this is a union that God has brought you together. All of that moved them to the sense that now that embrace is no longer an intercourse. That embrace is a communion now.
Wow, how beautiful. Sorry. Okay. I think those were the questions that Demos had put on track for me from last week that didn't get answered. If your question hasn't been answered from last week, feel free to drop it in the chat or in a comment, and we'll get to it. And
Trench has a follow-up
Oh.
to what towards the bottom of the chat to what Father Angel just said.
is it? Are you thinking of the one that starts with just?
Yes.
Yeah, so Trench says, and perhaps you'll want to respond, just because a person sins and everyone does it, does not mean the church has to change its stance. What advice you give is improper since it goes against encouraging others to do what's right. When the church compromises, it will keep compromising. So this, again, is not the orthodoxy I know.
It may not be the orthodoxy that you know, and I agree with what you're saying, but the church has to speak relevant to, the church has to be relevant to who they are speaking to. If I'm not disagreeing with Trench. I'm saying that's why I said at the beginning, the church says that premarital sex is not appropriate. That's what the church says. So I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is that for the church, for us to stand here and say, don't have premarital sex, and then people are like, yeah, well, you stop living in the 1800s. We have to be able to speak to those people. Okay, but in a way that doesn't necessarily jeopardize our principles. There are many things that the church has acquiesced on. One of those, which is a horrible sin, is the way that we treat divorce. Divorce now becomes acceptable. You can get a divorce now. That was never Jesus's call, but now the church has a way that you can become divorced. And they have their reasons, and a lot of times they play games with what those reasons are. So it's like we become myopically focused on one thing, like being gay or premarital sex. So I'm not disagreeing with Trench at all. I agree with what you said. But orthodoxy must be relevant. And many religions have, people have turned away from that religion because it doesn't speak to them anymore. So now if I preach from the pulpit and I say, if you can't get married in this church, if you've been having premarital sex, you better stop right now. And they're going to be afraid to come to their own priest. I can't have that. I'm supposed to reach out. Remember now that many times Jesus did preach to the sinful people. Most of the time he preached to those that were sinning. And he did say to them, once they were healed, he did say to them, go and sin no more. But it's not that he didn't go and approach them. He didn't treat them in the way of saying, well, you're a sinner and I can't speak to you until you clean up your act. I ain't talking to you.
Yeah.
That's not the way that Jesus behaved.
It's not punishing.
Right.
So I'll get started on more of the questions in the chat, and I know that there's discussion happening probably down there, but I'll get to it. So please bear with me. The first question we have is from Medieval Guitar. They say, good evening, Father and Marissa. Some prayer books speak of blessing one's food or bed at night with the sign of the cross. How does that work, and is this a widespread practice?
Blessing of the food certainly is. Every Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox household that I go to, if they are in the church, so to speak, I have seen that. Now they won't bless it, let's say, the way that I do. They're not going to say, okay, bless this food. What they'll say is they'll just make the sign of the cross. And they'll say, dear God, bless this food and drink that has been prepared for us. So yes, that is absolutely common. And then at nighttime, it's not the blessing of the bed. It is the blessing that should I not awake, that you will accept my repentance so that I can enter the kingdom of freedom. We're not blessing the bed. We're blessing the fact that we will be in a state of sleep. And in fact, the beautiful, beautiful prayers of the akathist, when they sing Aspiles, right? There's a wonderful prayer when they stand in front, and it says, and specifically in there, at night when I go to sleep, make it free of demonic images. And if I should not awaken, then guide my soul. So that's the prayer at night, that should we not wake up, that we're taken care of.
Yeah. Next question. Hello to you too, Trench. Wink. He sent a winky. Aaron, 88205. Hello, Father. What do we do when we feel like our prayers aren't being answered? Also, do you think viewers will ever be able to call in live? Oh, cool.
Well, the second part is a technical question for our producer. I am not the technical guy. That's why I have this kind of expertise.
We have the ability. I don't necessarily recommend it especially because we have a church channel. The ability to call in during a live performance is only going to inspire people to call in and troll us a little bit.
Oh, okay.
For the sake of the show and being able to be as communicative as possible to help those out there, it's probably going to be the best if we stick to the chat. But we will consider it. It's something that has run through my mind before.
Okay. And the first part, again, remind me of the first part of the question.
The first question was, what do you do when your prayers, you feel like they're not being answered?
And actually we had a somewhat similar question last week. Your prayers will always be answered. There's no doubt about that. Your prayers will be answered. The problem is the prayers will not necessarily always be answered in the way that you want them to be answered. So again, it's the whole Mick Jagger thing. Can't always get right.
Yeah.
Right. So in that sense, your prayers will be answered. What you have to allow space for, what you have to allow room for, is for God to speak. And sometimes that's not what happens, is that God becomes kind of like, a maitre d', waiter, I have a request. God runs over, what's your request? And then he takes it back to the kitchen and brings it back and serves it to you. This is not the God that we serve. So those prayers, number one, must be to aid in your salvation. So like I tell the congregation, Is it a sin to pray for a car? No. But what are you going to do with that car? Are you going to go to strip clubs with that car? Are you going to now gamble with that car? Are you going to use it for a committal of crimes? No. That's certainly that prayer is not going to be answered. But if the prayer is now for the car that I want to use it for my family because I have to get food, and so that is towards our salvation. So number one, the prayer must be directed towards your salvation. And it must be said with a pure heart, meaning that this is what I really want. This is what I need. And then what God will do is will grant that prayer in the way that you need it. Sometimes and I'm a perfect example of that. I have prayed many times for things that I thought I wanted, and the answer that I got was not the answer that I wanted, but it turned out to be exactly what it was that was necessary and right for me. So but you have to give God space. So pray, but then take time to be silent and to look around and see how God is answering that prayer. And sometimes we don't do that because we're focused on what we think the answer to that prayer is.
Moving on in the questions. Spiro asks, is the ministry of Jesus our only proof that God exists? Not trying to diminish the ministry of Jesus, but just curious if something else tells us that God exists.
Well, in the words of St. John Chrysostom, everything is a sacrament, so everything is a miracle. So everything that occurs, to include the fact that we live on a second-by-second basis, is the proof of God. Okay, the fact that we look at now creation and how it has evolved and how we have evolved into beings from where we started into now who we are. Those are all pictures now of God's ongoing revelation. So he is present in, and again, we have the prayer at the beginning of Orthodox, where we say, the heavenly King, the comfort of the Spirit of truth, who fills all things. Mm-hmm. This is who we believe that God is. So Jesus is the earthly expression now of God's love, so that he made himself manifest. He became man for our salvation, so that we would know that God exists. But God existed for the Jews, he existed for the Egyptians, he existed for the Greeks, he has existed for all time. So, but Jesus is the manifestation of the earthly manifestation of who God is, so that we can look up. There it is. So we can look upon that face and actually see then the face of God.
Moving on in the questions. Hello to everyone. Trench has a question. Christianity was to be an anti-religion, since it was similar to Hellenism to use logos, which means logic, which is why it flourished in Greece due to many similarities. Why isn't that emphasized more? Even Christ said the time has come for God's name to be glorified when the Greeks showed up. Which that statement was washed over in the Orthodox Study Bible and removed to say it was Greek, which was not proper. I hope I'm saying your statement right, but effectively, I think what Trench is trying to ask is, why hasn't this concept of logos been emphasized more within Christianity or Greek Orthodoxy, perhaps?
Well,
I hope I'm doing you.
Well, I want to start. He says anti-religion. What I would do is say, in the words of the Holy Fathers, and also expressed by the Protestant theologian Paul Tillich, Christianity is the end point of all religions. It's not an anti-religion, it's the end point of all religions. Because there is, when the question comes out, which religion is the true religion? Mm-hmm. Okay, the Christian answer, the Christian answer to that question is that there is an element, for Orthodoxy, there is an element of truth in all religions, mm-hmm. Okay? But the fullness of the fullness of the understanding of God is present in the Orthodox Church. That is what the Orthodox will say. So that we are the end point. There is nothing more that can be said about Christianity than now God becoming man and now having Jesus Christ come for our salvation. There's nothing more. That is the last covenant that has been made for God's people. So that's why I wouldn't call it an anti-religion, but I would call it the endpoint, as Paul Tillich calls it. Now I was going somewhere with that. Now, in all of the writings of the fathers that I have seen, the term logos is used. I don't want to overemphasize the Greeks either, okay? Because, it was the same Greeks that St. Paul said, what is foolishness to the Athenians is God to me. So he was actually, to some extent, kind of making fun of the Greeks, okay? Because the Greeks thought, this is kind of the stupidest thing I've ever seen, is you're worshiping a humiliated and crucified person on the cross. I don't understand what that means. So the Greeks had the concept of logos, but not to the point developed to what we have as a Christian understanding. But all of the church fathers have all spoken of now the Word, the living Word. I am the way, the truth, the life. The living Word as the logos. So I've seen that in all the fathers' writings, so I'm not sure how he would say that it's not being expressed. But I am certainly not going to give the Greeks credit for something that they don't necessarily deserve. Now, did the philosophy of Hellenism help the church fathers to express deep and complex theological concepts? Absolutely. So the benefit of the philosophical side of Hellenism did and made an important contribution. But I don't want to overemphasize now the fact that it was the Greeks that gave us Christianity, because that is not true.
It seems that Trench wanted to clarify and say that anti-religion, he was quoting from another priest. But moving on. Sorry. Hello to you too, Dr. Strange. As Computer Girl,
okay.
My name is Marissa. You can call me Marissa.
Computer girl. Okay.
I guess yeah. Tina Asimos has a question. With the money changers at the temple in mind, is it a conflict to sell pastries and other goods as a church fundraiser in a coffee area adjacent to the narthex of the church?
No, it is not. Because again, what Jesus was railing about at the money changing table was the concept of what they were trying to do with the money. Again, it wasn't that Jesus had a problem with the paying of the money for the particular item, but they were quote unquote fleecing poor people, right? So again, what were you buying was an animal that would atone for your sins, right? The animal would be sacrificed then for your sins. This is why we have, again, Jesus as the last and bloodless sacrifice, right? Okay, so Jesus didn't necessarily have an issue from what we saw. He didn't have an issue with the paying of that, okay? But you were supposed to now pay with a Jewish coin, a temple coin, and they had Roman money. So now what you have is you have the money changers now changing that money out. So I come to you as a poor person, and I can only afford 2 turtle doves. That this is going to be my sacrifice. And then I give you Roman money, and you say, yeah, you got to use temple money. All right, if you want temple money, that's 10% more. So now people are being fleeced. So this concept of using the church as a profit center, as a personal profit center, selling pastries at church, none of the ladies that I've ever seen, none of our people have ever taken that money and put it into their pocket.
Yeah.
It's gone to Philoptigos, it's gone to the church, it's gone to a charity. Okay, those things are exactly what we should be doing. There's absolutely no problem in that. Now, if they were putting it in their pocket or charging me 5% extra to put it in a sack, then I'd say we got a money changer problem.
Yeah, I hear you. Dr. Strange.
Yeah, apparently his first question disappeared for some
Yeah.
reason. That happens sometimes with chat, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dr. Strange. I do appreciate you numbering your questions, I will say that. Dr. Strange's second question, though, is Jesus, and it actually kind of fits almost, is Jesus the Lamb? If so, shouldn't he be female, according to Leviticus 4:32?
If he brings the lamb as his offering for a sin offering, he shall bring a female without blemish. And 33 goes on to say, and lay his hand upon the head of the sin offering and kill it for a sin offering in the place where they kill the burnt offering. So it does say bring a female lamb without blemish.
Okay, but again, the Orthodox Church, again, so we interpret things historically, allegorically, metaphorically, and literally. Okay, this is not a literal interpretation. We do not see God as this, we do not see Jesus Christ as a substitute for a lamb. So he doesn't need to be, he is not that exact lamb. We use that he is the Lamb of God, the lamb being the one that was sacrificed in Jewish days, in Jewish times, and now he becomes symbolically that lamb. It is inappropriate in Orthodoxy to represent Jesus Christ as a lamb and an icon.
Yeah.
That is absolutely inappropriate because he is not just this lamb being offered for atonement. He is much more than that. But just as we would say, we would if something happened in a meeting or something, in a business meeting or something like that, and we would say something like oh man, he's really being led like a lamb to the slaughter, isn't he? We don't mean that literally we're going to put him on a table and cut his hand off or cut his head off, but we are referring back to that Jewish tradition. So in that sense, Jesus Christ symbolically is that lamb that is being offered up for this bloodless and last, this final sacrifice.
If I may intervene, isn't the essence of God something that is far, far beyond the earthly idea of gender or...
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Just as the heavenly bodiless power should never be, like an angel, should never be shown as a male or a female. And in fact, if it's drawn correctly, it's androgynous. You don't
Can't
know.
tell.
You can't
Yeah.
tell. I mean, so you're absolutely right. Those things that are heavenly and divine are, if we can use the term, sexless, right? Okay. So in that sense, you're absolutely right. And remember, we cannot participate even in the essence of God. The only thing we can participate in as humans is the energies of God. Those are those things that he creates. We can participate in those, but we cannot know, nor can we participate in the essence of God. That is strictly relegated to then the persons of the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, this has this, if folks in the chat don't mind, this kind of pertains to a question I have been thinking about and I've been wanting to ask you. Yeah, so please forgive me, God bless you all. But you know, this concept, like, I feel like there's something very wrong about the anthropomorphization of God. And when people speak of the fear of God, you know, like, I feel like naively I would take that as like being afraid of repercussions or, you know, running away as a kid from like a spanking or something.
I would agree, yes.
But like, I think for me personally, and I'm wondering if it's kosher, is
Good use of the term.
you know that feeling when you like look up at the night sky and you like feel this like churning in your stomach,
Okay.
because you realize how small you are, kind of thing, and how like profound it is to even be like alive.
Correct, okay.
That kind of, to me, I think that's what is the fear that is the awe, that is the anxiety inducingness of God, right? And I think it's supposed to humble you in some sort of way, right?
Okay.
You know
all
what I
right.
mean? Like, is that okay? Is that if I interpret, because like I feel weird sitting with when I'll listen to a sermon or something, and the priest will say like, and we have the fear of God, and it just sits so wrong with me to hear that, because I don't feel like he would want us to be wary, right? But like, would he? Like, I feel like fear is probably the baseline emotion that he's trying to provoke within us.
God is?
God, he as in, am I making some sense?
Well, so and I guess I want to point two things out. Number
Yeah.
one is that what is profound is his infinite love. That is
Yeah.
the profoundness, is that there is an infinite love for his creation. And regardless of the number of times that through creation people have turned away from him, when he has demonstrated his power, and for him to continuously return to his people and offer them now his only son, who now will be crucified and die, there is an awesomeness in that,
Yeah.
to know that that is the kind of God that we worship. So I think love has to be the starting point.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting part is that when I come out with the Holy Cup of Communion, right, the first words out of my mouth are with the fear of God. But as you mentioned, which is correct, it is not a childish fear like I'm fear of getting spanked. That was a good way
Yeah.
to put that. This is not the fear that we have, but there is that fear that we are his creation. He is beyond describing. He's incomprehensible. And when you don't know something, right, there is a fear associated with that, because I don't know what this is, right?
Uncertainty does that to us. Yeah.
Right. And there's no way that I can know. It's not a question that I can answer. All right. But what I do know, that within that fear, so with the fear of God, but with faith and the love that he will grant to us, come and approach him.
Yeah.
Right? Because approaching God is a terrible thing. It's, to be in his presence is, some priests have said, well, let's change the word, with the awesomeness of God, but it takes away from.
It does.
Yeah.
I understand like the language conflict there, but thank you for explaining.
But there's a tension
Yeah.
there, because there certainly is a fear, but then that fear, through faith in his inexpressible love, allows us to draw near. And that is such a succinct little phrase that we utter in liturgy that just goes over the heads, right? With the fear of God, faith and love approach.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and actually, when you put it this way, it sounds very positive,
Yeah.
right? It's very encouraging, and like calming. I don't know. I like that.
And again, why is God going to worry about a small, insignificant
Yeah.
creature like me? Because of his infinite love for every single one of his creations who are made in his image and likeness.
Thank you so much, Father Ray. I'll get back to everyone's questions now. Let me see.
Well, somebody had to have a question like that. So
Yeah. Dr. Strange's third question, and I think it pertains.
part A, B, and C. Oh man.
There might be some D, E,
I
and
love
F.
it when you keep labeling people. I love
Please
it.
keep labeling.
Especially when we have conversations within the chat, having a notation and that's a question is very helpful.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
very helpful for me. Thank you, guys. And I think his question pertains to the earlier discussion. For some reason, I'm blanking, but it will probably come to you once I ask it. But his question is, should the church adapt to society, or should society adapt to the church?
Yes. Yes.
Wow, you just did that, didn't you?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I love
Okay.
these answers.
The communion today in the issue of pandemic that we have, the church is adapting to society. Our archdiocese, our bishops are telling us, okay, that the method of distribution for communion must change. We are adapting to society. I get it. There are priests out there that are saying you're a bunch of traitors and you should never have done that, and you give it on the spoon and you better take it, or you've got no faith. And St. John Zizioulas, Bishop Zizioulas, clearly said, Bishop of Paragon clearly said, we have to minister not only to those people with a deep faith, but also to those people that are weak in their faith. We have it as the church an obligation to answer to both of them. So the issue that we grant divorces, the fact that we knowingly marry people who have premarital sex, this is where the church now has given into a changing society. Now, does society also need to change for us? Of course it does. It needs to understand that we cannot acquiesce to every issue now that is coming up on the social the social framework.
Yeah.
We can't give in to everything. All right. This is why we have priests in the Orthodox Church, because for their community they have to make those decisions under the guidance of the metropolitan or the hierarch, of course. All right. So that we can speak to all of our community. And so that's why different communities have different priests. Some priests enjoy a very conservative priest, and microcosm. That microcosm community can exist with that priest. That's what they want. Okay, but there are other communities that they're not as they're in areas that are not as conservative. All right. And I'm not saying that we give in to them, but we analyze each one of their conditions and we respond to them appropriately within what the church will allow us to do. So, and that is the beauty of that's the whole it depends. Because if somebody comes to me and says, I've had an abortion, well, you're going to hell. There you go. They're done. Nothing I can do. No, this is not the church. Well, we say, okay, now tell me now, what is your situation? Come, talk to me. What happened, and then we can move from there. It was a rape, or it was a mistake, and I have been crying now for the last 5 years, and I just want to get this off my chest. Nah, abortion is just birth control for me. There's a bunch of different answers, but the priest has to find out what that answer is. So in that case, now I am somewhat adjusting for society because I'm willing to listen to her, not just blow her off because she's out of abortion, right? Against the church, I'm blowing you off. But at the same time, she has to now be willing to say, okay, so what happens now? And the priest has to guide her through the fact of why did she have it, and to try to show her that this is not something that you want to do again.
So I'm going to ask Dr. Strange's fourth question, and then after that, I see you do have more questions, Dr. Strange, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to then go to Aaron's question, and if time allows at the end, I'll go back to your question 5/6, okay? So question 4, was Jairus' daughter dead or dying when Jesus was informed?
Jairus' daughter?
Dead or dying when Jesus was
Well,
informed?
As
Our Sunday school video actually answers that question.
yes, she was dead
When
because
he was informed, though,
What?
when they first heard about it, was she already dead? She was dying. And
she was yes, when Jairus went to Jesus, he said to come to my house, my daughter is dying. Okay, and that's why when they got to the house, they said to Jesus, if you would have been here, my daughter would not have died, right? Okay, and when he said, no, she's not asleep, they were laughing, right? Because they said, talking about? She's dead already. There's nothing that you can do. So he clearly shows now, he waits that time, just like he did with Lazarus, to show now that he is now the Lord of the Lord of life. He is the one now who grants life. There was resurrection in through Elijah in the Old Testament, but that was done through God. This action was done by God. This Jesus shows, I am God because I am the Lord of life. I am the one who now gives life. This is not something that like in the case of Elijah, that happened by God.
Aaron 88205's question is, if someone were to unexpectedly die while holding a grudge against someone, so not forgiving that person, is this person then damned?
We'd all be in trouble.
So for the Orthodox, this is a gray area, okay? I don't think that the Orthodox Church, for a grudge, I don't think the Orthodox Church would say that they are damned. But they have died in opposition to the Lord's Prayer, right? Forgive us our trespasses, we forgive those who trespass against us. Okay, so to die with hate in your heart is certainly going to have a consequence. Now, again, we as Orthodox cannot say what that consequence is, but it certainly is antithetical to what Jesus has said for us to have towards our brother. Unfortunately, I've been in situations where people have died, not forgiven a family member or mad at a friend or something like that, and the problem with that is that the last person you turn your face to at the moment of death is not God, it's to another person. And by turning your face away from God, that is what we would describe as hell, right? Because in your very last moments, when you should be making peace with your Creator, what are you doing? You're harboring ill will, and you're turning your face away from God towards some other idol somewhere else.
Dr. Strange, I so admire you for all of your questions. I think it's impressive. You can ask so much. But I'm really sorry, but we'll leave them a bit towards the end if we have time.
Yeah, because we've answered, I think,
all the
right.
questions have been answered pretty much.
But that's okay. It doesn't mean we're not going to get to
Yeah.
it, but we're going to give everybody a fair shot. All right.
Yeah. So the next question, well, we have an email question that you got for us from Beth. She asks, what are you looking forward to in 2021?
To fully open the church again, and the most thing that I'm looking forward to is Holy Week.
Me too.
I'm looking forward to Holy Week. I want Holy Week back,
Yeah, that was really, this year it was really upsetting, actually. It was not the same.
It is just the saddest thing, you guys were here, you saw the empty church. It was to hold up, to come out and say, come receive the light to nobody.
And to not hear Christos
and not to hear the whole church singing Christos Anesti. That is my one primary prayer, that we will celebrate Holy Week.
Yeah, oh man, no, I agree.
Great camera work, though.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
it was
thank God for Demos, because what the people saw was a full church. I love that. That was awesome. That was great.
Yeah. We have a question from Diane. She says, hi, Father Angelo. What is your favorite Christmas hymn?
She's not going to like the answer, nor is Demos. Hippopotamus.
Your wife won't like that answer.
Yeah.
The hippopotamus song?
She
I love
hates,
the hippopotamus
President
song.
Tara hates that song.
I actually don't know this song. I thought you were gonna go with a different joke, like Mariah Carey or something. I don't know.
No, actually, it is the first kathisma of Christmas. Oh God, be glorified. It's the first hymn of Christmas. I absolutely love that hymn. It's it's not a classic Christmas song, but it speaks so clearly of what Christmas is. So "O glorify God," the first kathisma of Christmas. You hear it now in our liturgies. Every single Orthodox, you'll hear that. But if I had to say the most common one, I'd probably say I like "God rest ye merry gentlemen." I like that one.
How about you?
Oh yeah, what's yours?
I don't know. Actually, I don't think I do. I just kind of enjoy all of it. Is that okay for me to say?
Well, we know that Demos is not "The Grinch Stole Christmas."
No, I like that song. It's just I heard it 3 times today randomly.
Oh, okay.
The worst one is "Last Christmas." Every time I hear that song, I start envisioning that scene from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when they rip out the heart.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah. Okay, right.
Oh man. So Demos has gotten us another email question from Mark, who asks, what are your New Year resolutions and which would you recommend? Wow, people are asking you like very personal questions.
Yes. No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's nothing wrong with that. For me personally is that I really need to do much more work. In the community, helping my fellow man. Whether that's volunteering with at the food bank, whether that's donating food, gift cards. We have when I was in Flint. Our church worked very, very closely. We established a program with Catholic Charities there, so we would go and we would prepare meals. So every church signed up for a particular week, okay, and we had our turn. And I never had so much fun as just working at the soup kitchen and serving it, meeting the people there, having conversations. Now I'm the priest; I don't do any real work, but I walk around and I talk to people, and I love engaging and talking with people. And I've established a relationship with the Catholic Charities office here at Blessed Sacrament in Rochester, and they have a wonderful meal program that they do there. Unfortunately, today's current situation now prevents them from gathering in the halls and stuff like that. But my personal one is that I do as much more work in helping not only those in my community, but also volunteering my time outside the community. I don't think that as Christians, I don't think we do that enough. As Orthodox Christians, I don't think we do that enough.
Yeah. Like I would like to get involved in more volunteering. I think it's fun and it feels good.
We did Meals on Wheels. Terry and I signed up and did Meals on Wheels, and just seeing the person's face that they would say, "I've been looking forward to that meal all day." And I'm like, "Oh man, it's just and we don't even think about a meal. We just open up our fridge and we just eat. And here it is. I'm offering this hot meal to this person, and they're like, "I was looking forward to this so much," and you're thinking to yourself. So it was a very humbling experience. Yeah.
For me personally, I like working with Flower City Pickers here. Pretty much they don't allow for any food waste and they donate all the food. You sort through it and you give it to soup kitchens and stuff. It feels good. A little bit of manual labor, is that the phrase? Doesn't hurt.
Or Emmanuel labor.
Yeah.
That would be me. And my second resolution is make Demos work harder in 21.
What?
Maybe it should be to pay
Is that the
Demos
one you'd
more.
recommend? Hey, well, I like what she said.
She likes that one, yeah.
I'm so nice. Yeah, those of us at OQA, we got to unionize, I don't even have any health benefits doing this. I'm just kidding. So moving on in the questions. Wiran asks, "Hello, I'm from Indonesia. Random question. Do we have proof that Jesus was born on December 25th, or is this just a tradition?"
Yes, it's just a tradition. We don't believe that historically that he was born on Christmas, but what does Christianity do? What Christianity does is it takes those symbols of, let's say, a pagan faith or something like that, and it shines them in the light of Christ. Okay, so like the Easter egg, right? okay, the egg is the pagan sign of fertility, right? Of new birth and everything like that. And so what did we do, right? In fact, it was Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene, who, when she went to the emperor to plead the case for after Jesus' death, that she gave him the red egg, and she said, "This is now the blood of now Christ. It symbolizes the blood of Christ, and this is Christianity." And so it was reappropriated to express Christianity. It's the same thing that we do with Christmas. Christmas was an extremely pagan holiday that was celebrated with the Christmas tree and the Yule log and the lights and all that. And what we did is we show is you can't just tell people stop believing in this, start believing in this. That's one of the issues that fundamentalist Protestantism has suffered through, is because it's been a replacement. You're wrong, this is right, stop doing that. People aren't going to stop doing what they have done for thousands of years. So what you have to do is you have to show what they're doing, but show it illumined through Christ. And that's what we did with Christmas, is now, the Christmas tree now becomes not now the symbol of the burning of the Yule log, okay? Now it just becomes a thing of beauty, decorated with ornaments and lights, and reminds us now of the tree, right? And what the power of the cross is. So we can see things through the symbology of redefined symbology.
Lovely. I feel like you have a very pragmatic approach to so much of this, right? When it comes to guiding people spiritually and helping them come to an understanding with God and the church, So I just want to say that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Because I'm not and again, we said this in the show, I'm not a theologian. I'm just a guy who for 30 years didn't think that the church really had anything to say. And then, again, and I've said this before, and then I met my spiritual father, who was able in a very pragmatic way to take a guy like me that was to where religion was like, don't really care, and be able to transform me and show me how the church is alive and how it is real, and when that light went off, I mean, it was like you said, I mean, it was just this brilliant experience. And that's what I want to pass on. But it came to me pragmatically. I'm not saying that that's the solution for everybody, but I truly believe that when people understand things pragmatically, then, especially in America, then it makes sense to them. And they're like, okay, I get that. I may not agree with it. I get it now. But high theology, that's really not for most people.
Yeah.
Although we do on this show, apparently we have some theologians out there.
Yeah.
Some really tough questions.
No. I'm really happy to read the questions. They're really interesting. So Demos has told me that we have a prayer request for a young woman named Jill who was just diagnosed with COVID-19. So, yeah.
Wait, don't go.
So while he's gone, entertain us, Marissa.
Do you know any jokes, Demo?
Too many.
Do you got any good ones to share? That you can say?
No, when you ask me that question in the church, automatically I think of all the ones I can't say. So
Yeah.
that's the problem. Maybe
course.
that's a joke in itself.
What was her name?
Jill?
Jill. O Lord our God, who cured the chronic and tormenting sufferings of mankind by your word alone, who healed the fever of Peter's mother-in-law, do you, the same Lord, who chastise, compassion, and heal with love, we ask that you continue to watch over and heal this your servant Jill from the scourge which afflicts her, and that you, Lord, are able to take away from her every illness and malady and raise her from her bed of pain and pour upon her the remedy of your mercy and grant to her perfect and recovery and health. For you are the healer of our souls and bodies, O Christ our God, and unto you we ascribe glory together with your Father and your all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and forever into the ages of ages. Amen.
Hope you're keeping well, Jill. You'll power through this, I believe. Spiro has a question. How do we know that after someone dies that they get a flavor of heaven and hell and then are asleep until the second coming?
Good question. We don't know. You know, we have ideas, we have theories, we have monks who have told us different things, but we do not have any definitive proof that you have this foretaste. Now, we have Jesus, and we say this is the gospel reading from John that we have at every funeral, and we say, and those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of judgment. We have that, but does that say now that there's a foretaste there? Okay, it doesn't really. So it is an Orthodox tradition, but it is certainly not a dogma.
So it's 8 o'clock, and since this is our last show of the year, we'll be back the first week of January. We should go on a little bit longer to cover these questions. You all good for that?
Yeah. So
Yeah, I've got a whole library here of.
feel free to keep the commentary rolling, but I'm going to just try to get through the rest of the questions that are in the chat. So please don't ask any more and save them for next year. And then I'll go through to Dr. Strange's other questions, okay? All right. So going in through here.
Trench's follow-up question there is an interesting one.
The one about contractors?
Yeah.
That one? Yeah.
Contractor.
Trench, well, I'll add the context. Trench asks, when you go to a doctor or a contractor, usually they say to ask for a second opinion. Do you admit to do the same with a priest?
Yeah, I actually, there are. Okay, so the way I'm going to begin this answer is that when people come to me and they say, Father, I want to be Orthodox, my response back to them is, I don't want you to be Orthodox. What I want you to be is a follower of Christ. I don't know if this is going to be the right place. Let's go through the catechism and find out. But you may find Christ in the Protestant church. You may find it in the Catholic church, okay? But the goal is not to become, affiliated with a party line. Orthodoxy is better than Catholicism, better than Protestantism. We are called by Jesus Christ to bring people to God. That is our calling. Now, and different priests and pastors are going to speak to different people. Not every priest is right for every person. There are certainly parishioners here that like my pragmatic approach and being very
It depends.
It depends. Being kind of overly friendly. The fact that I do have a stern side. I speak very plainly. Some parishioners like that. Other parishioners absolutely hate it. Don't like it. All right, but there are other priests that they like, that they prefer a more soft-spoken priest, a priest that is better able to quote scripture, a priest that is more able to put them in a much more spiritual mood. Not me being loud, called crazy, but some people like that. They like that kind of energy. Okay, so do I encourage people to get a second opinion, meaning to find a priest that speaks to them who will draw them to Jesus Christ? 100%. Do I approve, or does the church approve of church shopping? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. So I've had those situations too, where a priest from a local church, and this happened to me back in the Detroit area many times, a priest from one of those churches, parishioner from one of those churches would come to me and say, Father, we'd like to get married in your church. My first question is,
Who are you?
Who are you? Yeah, who are you? And where is your church? Oh, well, we're the church in X. Well, why don't you have that priest do it? Well, the priest said this, we have to do this and this and this, and we heard that you don't say that, so we want to get married. I'm like, no. You're not shopping around getting a second opinion to find out that this priest says what you want. No, you have your priest. Go to your priest and work it out with him. So, like I said, but when somebody is new to the faith and they come to me, I just want to make sure that I am the right person to them to lead them to Christ. So I do want them to try the different churches in the area and kind of see where they fit, where they're comfortable with. Like this church is, maybe somewhat uncomfortable for somebody who, doesn't want a lot of Greek, right? They're looking for something a little bit more Americanized, okay? Not that we're not friendly, okay, but we have a Greek flavor here, all right? So there's the OCA church here, okay? There is a Ukrainian church here. There is another Greek Orthodox church here. So, and what I found is that, they like it better over there. And then some of those people have migrated and come back over here because they like just kind of what my personality is.
They're just like you.
Well, So I know, Trent, it's a really long answer, but the church absolutely abhors any kind of church shopping from an established parishioner. But from somebody entering into the Orthodox faith, I absolutely believe that they should kind of look around and find out where they really fit best, not only with the priest, but with the community.
I like the next question. It's from Chris, and he asks, to which saint should I pray if I struggle with depression and anxiety?
Hold up. My research assistant is here, so she's looking that up. So hold that thought. I'm going to get back to you. See who is the patron saint of anxiety.
Is there one? Can I nominate myself? I'm just kidding.
So while she's doing that, just what the question you've got?
So Trench has another question and asks, the church asks if you have an issue with someone to go to a Christian court. What Christian court? Is there a Christian court?
There's a spiritual court for divorce, but there is no Christian court. Now, I know that St. Paul said, take your issue to the elders of the church. Confront the person first, and then take it to the elders of the church. We don't really have that. We don't really have that concept. But there are situations of something that a parishioner would like to do in the church. So we're not talking about personal disputes, right? You, your parents, your brothers, or whatever. We don't have that kind of court. But if there is something that you want to do, a group of you want to do in this church, that will be brought before the board of elders to decide if it is appropriate. Is it spiritual? Is it for the edification of the community? Is it for the good order? And so in that sense, yes, those situations would be brought to what we would call a parish council or a board of elders.
Terry is still working on it.
So Saint Gerasimos is one of the ones that Presbytera found who can offer those prayers. And what we can do is we can find a little bit more on Father Gerasimos. Is Bishop Gerasimos or Father Gerasimos?
I think he was a bishop. His church is Kefalonia, I believe.
Is that Germanos?
It's one of the churches that has. And I've mentioned this before. That I want to actually do a video on it. Underneath the altar, if memory serves, there's a crypt where he used to escape to avoid persecution.
Ah, yes. Okay. All right.
He has his body is there as well because it's one of the
incorruptibles.
Yes.
Dr. Strange asks, Flint. So you were there in Flint, right?
Correct.
Was this before or after the water crisis? And maybe
During.
you can give like your impressions on what it was like to live there. Like, how was that?
Flint and Rochester share a common industrial history. Flint was a GM town, and specifically it was Buick City. It was so GM that it was called Buick City. When you came on the highway and you were getting towards Flint, there was a huge sign that said "Entering Buick City." I mean, that's what it was. Now, when you put your eggs in one basket, and all those eggs break, you got nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was no diversification, and that was one of the big issues. And so what happened is Flint went from having almost 60 or 70,000 GM employees to having maybe 10,000. Okay, and a city the size of Flint, which is comparable to Rochester, and Rochester went through the same thing with Kodak, right? Kodak employed, right? They were the employers, okay?
Yeah.
Eggs in one. But the difference is that when Kodak pulled out, they still had some technology. They still had the great hospitals. They had two great universities. They have two great universities, right? So there's something to fall back on. Okay, Flint didn't have that, and so unfortunately, it was.
All these saints for anxiety.
So the saints for anxiety are Saint Gerasimos, Isaac the Syrian, Ephraim of Neomacri, and Dipna, right? Saint Dipna. So Saint Gerasimos, Saint Isaac the Syrian, Ephraim of Neomacri, and
What she said.
Nympha. Nympha. Yeah, not nymphi. Okay. All right. So there we go. And
That caused me a
so
lot of anxiety just hearing you try to pronounce that.
the saints for deliverance from depression and various psychological afflictions. And that comes from Father Savas, the Athonite. Oh, did I? Oh, so anyway, kind of close that discussion about Flint. So I was there during the water crisis, and just like Rochester, Flint has a very large homeless and poverty problem. And when the water crisis hit, it unfortunately affected most of the it was the inner city. And because of the lead line pipes there, so it affected the inner city, and most inner cities now, right, are where the poor are. Because, right, even our church, when I was there, we built a new church that moved out of the city of Flint into the suburbs. So it did not affect, the water crisis did not affect the suburbs. It affected a very, very small area that was right in the center of the city. And those are the people, those impoverished people are the ones who really can't do anything about it. Our parishioners, they bought bottled water, because I had a few that still lived in the inner city, but they bought bottled water, and so it wasn't necessarily a problem for them. But if you can't afford those things, then it certainly becomes an issue.
One quick question for you is from Matthew McCarty and asks, does all Sunday services last 2.5 hours? How long is our Sunday service typically?
Now, okay. Now I know that Presbytera will say that my service lasts 45 minutes and my sermon lasts 2 hours. I know that she will say that, but the truth is that our liturgy is over in 45 minutes. It's not true. Yes.
I don't know about you, but I'm here every single Sunday.
All right. So how long? Okay. So Demos, you're timing it. You've got the camera. How long does my liturgy?
If we were to include Orthros, then yes, every service is about 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Oh,
If
okay.
we were to,
all right. If
yeah.
with the Matin service,
Yes.
it's 2.5 hours.
Otherwise it would be about an hour and a half at most. But once again, that time changes based on.
Yeah, we always have a memorial, or
Yeah.
now we have the thankful services, the autogracias. So those will take 10 or 15 minutes each. That'll add some time, right? My sermons are never more than 6 or 7 minutes.
I think your longest was 12, but lately you've been on a streak.
I've been
with
on
about 7 minutes lately.
Cool.
I will give him that credit because I edit those videos too.
That's going to be Trence's next question. I thought priests were not supposed to lie.
Well, we're going to get back to, I think Dr. Strange had about 2 questions that I
Okay.
didn't get to, and we'll just go over those and then we'll say goodnight. But question 5 or 6 is Kyrios equivalent to Yahweh? I think this was a question from the last time I did this almost. If so, doesn't that make him Abraham, divine, since Kyrios is used for him?
Now, so Kyrios really is the translation of Lord. Okay. And depending upon on the reading of the Old Testament, there were two distinct Jewish writers for those first 5 books of the Bible. Okay, there were what was termed the Yahwists. Okay, and they gave then God's name as Yahweh. Okay, but then there were also there were the Yahwists and there was another set of Jewish writers. I know if I look this up on my phone, I'll find it right away. And they did not use the term Yahweh, they used then the term God, but they also used that term, the Lord of the Sabaoth. Okay, so can that be used interchangeably for God? Yes, it can. And from a Yahwist perspective, then yes, we could infer that since Yahweh is God, as the Yahwists saw it, then Lord of the Sabaoth, that's the same thing. Now, remember, Judaism does not have a Trinitarian concept, so it doesn't make sense to talk about Jesus in terms of Old Testament, from the sense of outside of prophecy, right? That Jesus is prophesied. They're not going to call him God. So the Lord now is meant for God. And then since his name is Yahweh, then we would say yes, in the Old Testament sense. But in the New Testament sense, the word Lord we use for Jesus because it equates him as God, that he is God, but also that he is referred to as Lord.
Trench's 7th question is, what happened between the time of Moses or Joseph to Moses? What led to the slavery of the Jews? Was there a change in ruling dynasty?
Is that Dr. Strange's question?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Sorry. Yes, Dr. Strange.
Well, again, that's a history question. There's a history question there. So again, it's going to be one that I can't necessarily answer off the top of my head, because I know that with my memory, I'm going to leave out a detail or two. So that's a historical question that we can certainly do some research on, but I don't have the answer at the ready for exactly what happened between Moses and Joseph and.
More questions. There's one last Dr. Strange question. Sorry, I'm covering my mouth. Question 8, where are you?
While she's looking that up, Ernesto Rivera asks, I'm a Roman Catholic and I'm looking into the Orthodox Church. How does the Orthodox Church interpret Matthew 16:18, where Jesus tells Peter, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church"?
Oh, so he already provides for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so again, we are interpreting this not literally, as the Catholic Church would, right? That literally he gave Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven. That we interpret this much more metaphorically, that to you, now the disciples, I am giving you now the keys to the kingdom of heaven, meaning that I have given you the knowledge that you need so that you can go and make disciples of all nations. So for us, it's a much more metaphorical statement than an actual literal statement that, Peter, you inherit now the kingdom of heaven. I know, I can't do that.
Rest in peace, the microphone. Thank you, Demo, for filling in the gap there.
Anything I can do.
Yep.
Question
But
8.
good question. Good question.
Question 8, though, from Dr. Strange is Jesus the only begotten Son of God? If so, how do we explain David in Psalm 2:7 and Israel being the firstborn? So Demos is doing the research right now by looking up. But thankfully, Terry was.
That's not the biblical quote. Thank you, though.
Oh,
Biblical
I
quote.
can't. I'll just see it later.
I'll look that up if you may ask another question in the meantime. Oh, wait, I just got it.
What
Psalm 2:7. I will tell of the decree of the Lord. He said to me, "You are my son. Today I have begotten you." I think I asked the right one. Yeah, that's Psalm 2:7.
And again, it has to be read in the Hebrew, okay? Because, how they're going to use that term son of God. The Jewish faith, Judaism, is not going to use the term son of God in the same way that the Christian faith is going to use the son of God. Okay. So, because again, there we're talking about a mortal, so we can talk about birth. We can't equate begotten to a human as we can equate begotten to the Son of God, to Jesus, who is divine. Begotten there is only a placeholder. It's just we don't know what word to use because we don't speak the divine language. And so we say, rather than, we have to explain now, the personhood of Jesus Christ, and we say begotten. But we don't mean it in the sense that begotten is meant here in the Psalm reading to David. So we can't literally take begotten to mean the same thing in both cases. As St. Basil said, begotten is a placeholder word, but it is not in any way to indicate that Jesus now was born of God.
Dr. Strange says that we're the Trinity of this video stream.
Wow.
We're the what?
Trinity.
of this video
The Trinity of the video stream.
What
Well, wait
a
a minute.
compliment.
Yeah, what does it make Presbytera?
Oh, so, does that make her the Theotokos then? I don't-
Yeah, why
I don't
not,
know.
right?
Oh boy. We're going to get in trouble with that one now.
Yeah. She says, please.
Well, she's always saying that, or people are always telling her that she has the patience of a saint to deal with me, which I always thought that I'm like a joy to be with, right? How could anybody not? Nobody's saying it. Look at everybody is silent. Golly.
Yeah.
All I have now is my audience.
Okay, I think I got through everyone's questions. I don't want to double check for me, Demo, in case I'm missing anything. I don't think I am. Sorry I couldn't go through and read every single thing everyone posted in the chat because this would last 3 hours. And we only want it to last an hour, and it's
Yeah, we
already
went
an
from
hour
just-
and a half. But I don't mind. It's fun.
I did make a promise. There was a request for spanakopita recipe, and we have done a few kitchen talk episodes. We've been talking about bringing that back.
Yes.
So in 2021, we owe a spanakopita
Kopita, okay.
recipe.
In fact, what we'll do is we'll get Demos. We'll tape some of the ladies for the next bake sale.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be doing, and we can do a bunch because we can do the corembiadas, right?
Yeah.
What did you guys make when you were
Baklava.
down? Baklava. We can do something like that, kind of show how it's done, right?
Yeah.
The how-to videos.
Trench did have a question. Well, he had a couple, but I don't know if we missed this. But basically, priests were part of the Greek Revolution against the controlling powers. They did not say or do as the officials say. Even Christ turned tables to get the truth out. Are priests more afraid to speak now?
For certain things, I think that if truth be told, yes, I think they are. I think they are afraid. I mean, should I now take a stand and say, regardless of what our governor says, I am going to open my church fully, no COVID protections at all, and you can come and receive communion. If you don't receive communion, you have no faith, right? Is that me standing up for orthodoxy, and then they come and they arrest me and they haul me off to jail, right? Okay, so I mean, what strategic objective am I accomplishing? I mean, look, I'm a military guy. I mean, that's where I cut my teeth. Okay, and that's the first lesson that I learned. So you can't take the army out of the boy. All right, so I always am looking from this from the perspective of, what is the strategic objective for the betterment of the flock that I have been given, right? I have a responsibility to them. If I'm cooling my heels in a jail cell somewhere, what am I doing? What am I doing here? I mean,
defeats your
It
purpose.
defeats the purpose. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is there, so if somebody wants to call that fear on my part, that I am afraid to stand up for orthodoxy and I'm afraid not to go to jail, okay, but I don't see a purpose in that. I don't see an effective purpose in that. So I think what one person is calling cowardice, then others, like myself, would call now making a strategic decision on what is best at this moment in time for my parish.
Yeah, like it's not necessarily like it reminds me of this kind of thing I was told from friends of mine in academia and in like activist circles, that the worst thing that you can do for any cause is to get arrested, because it's detracting money, time, effort away from your purpose. So
Diane's last comment is a great one to end the year on.
yeah, I'll read Diane's comment out loud. Demos, what ways though, before I sign off with this, can people reach Father Angelo outside of the stream and stuff?
We've posted the email. If you have any questions or would like to reach Father personally, our email address is agocny@gmail. Please preface it with the subject Orthodoxy questions answered, so we know that it's connected to this stream. And you can, for any specific questions that refer to, that might involve any specific research, we would like to receive those questions ahead of time so we can more fully answer your questions. Or if you'd like to reach out to Father for any specific contact or requests or etc., that's the way to do so. And we'll be back the first week of January, and we hope that everybody has a fantastic Christmas and ecstatic New Year.
And before you read that, because I know we want to close on that, I first I want to say I wanted to do a project like this. I've wanted to do it. I wanted to do it in Flint. I wanted to do it in Kalamazoo. I really wanted to do this, but I didn't have the right people to do this. So God has blessed me with you and with Demos, and certainly with Presbytera, who kind of keeps me on a straight path here. So I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the right people. And so when I expressed my intent, my strategy to Demos, he was the one that was able to put this together. So I'm remembering from when we first started this, and we had like 2 followers, and one of them was Presbytera, Okay, and we've taken this now to a very exciting level. And there's now some real dialogue, some real discussion. This is due to both you and Demos and Terry being able to come together and help me do this. I'm just a pretty face on the camera. And I want to start by thanking you all for helping me to bring this. This has been a really great year, from 0 to where we are right now. We've got some really great things planned, I think, for moving into the new year. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then the second thing I want to say is I want to thank everybody out there who has been supporting us, has made our channel grow from like 2 subscribers to now over almost 2,200 subscribers. I mean, that is a great testament to the hard work that you guys do, but also to the dedication of those people that support us, come up with these really great questions. I am having a blast. I really enjoy and appreciate being able to bring whatever small piece of orthodoxy I can, that, again, not everybody's going to agree with, but to be able to answer people's questions. So again, thank you very much for a really great year. And now, finish with what you had.
Yeah. Diane says, The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Numbers 6:24-26.
Amen.
And on one last note, we have
There's always a lot.
hello
This
from
is-
Brazil. I have to point out.
Wait, this is like definition of a Greek goodbye.
I know,
I'm
right?
just
This
saying.
is the Greek goodbye. Classic
Classic.
Greek.
When I
Greek
see hello
goodbye.
from another country,
Well,
I point it out. That's
Como está,
awesome.
mano?
Well, with that note, have a very good night and
And a joyous Merry Christmas, a very, very happy New Year. And again, as she said, may the light of Jesus Christ shine on all of us.
Chronia pola.
Χρόνια πολλά.